Move your car, Emma. Dad ordered tea, the family business. My brother already had his keys out. I walked to the elevator. Instead, the security chief stopped them. That's the CEO's spot. Ms. Morrison bought this company last quarter. The Morrison and Sons building stood 12 stories tall in the heart of downtown. Its glass facade reflecting the morning sun. I'd walked past it 1,000 times growing up, watching Dad build his commercial printing empire from 3 employees to 300. Morrison and Sons. The name said everything about who mattered in this family. I pulled into the underground parking garage at 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the quarterly family meeting. My spot was right next to the elevator. Space A1, where I'd parked for the past 3 months during my consulting visits. What Dad called consulting, what I called due diligence. I was gathering my laptop bag when Dad's Escalade roared down the ramp. My brother Tyler in the passenger seat. They pulled up directly behind my Lexus, blocking me in. Dad climbed out, his face already red. Tyler followed, smirking. "Emma," Dad barked. "Move your car." "Good morning to you too, Dad." "I'm serious. Move it." Tyler's the new VP of operations. He gets the executive parking. Tyler jingled his keys. "Come on, sis. Some of us actually work here." I looked at the spot next to mine. A2 completely empty. "That's an executive spot too. A1 is for leadership," Tyler said. "You know, people who actually contribute to the company." "Right." I grabbed my bag and stepped out of the car. "The elevator's this way." "Emma." Dad's voice echoed off the concrete. I said, "Move your car." And I'm choosing not to. If Tyler wants it to, it's right there. Tyler's smirk widened. "Still can't follow simple instructions. This is why you never made it here." I walked toward the elevator without responding. Behind me, I heard Tyler say, "Forget it, Dad. Let her play consultant for another day. After the meeting, she'll be gone anyway." The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside and pressed 12. The top floor of Morrison and Sons housed the executive offices, the boardroom and Dad's corner suite, with its view of the harbor. I'd been up here exactly 4 times in my life. Twice as a child for Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. Once for my college graduation dinner. And once 3 months ago when I started asking questions about the company's financials. Sarah, Dad's assistant for 20 years, looked up from her desk. "Emma, you're early. Wanted to review some documents before the meeting." "Of course," she lowered her voice. "Heads up, your father's in a mood. The board's been pushing back on his expansion plans." "I heard, and Tyler," she hesitated. "He's been telling people you're going to pitch some consulting proposal today. He seems to think it's funny." "Does he?" "Emma, honey. I've known you since you were 8. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Your father doesn't like surprises." I smiled. "I'll keep that in mind." The boardroom was already set up. Leather chairs around a mahogany table. Presentations loaded on the screen. Coffee service arranged on the credenza. I took a seat in the middle. Not at the head where Dad would sit. Not at the foot where Tyler had placed his nameplate. The other board members filtered in. Uncle James, who owned 8% of the company. Margaret Chin, the CFO, who been with Dad for 15 years. Robert Torres, the outside investor who held 12%. Patricia Walsh, the operations director. And then Tyler walking in like he owned the place, which, technically, he thought he would someday. "Emma," he said my name too loudly. "Didn't expect you to sit at the big table. There's a chair against the wall for observers. I'm comfortable here, thanks." "Suit yourself." He took his seat at the foot of the table and opened his laptop with a flourish. "Though I should warn you, we're discussing actual business strategy today. Might be over your head." Uncle James frowned. "Tyler, that's unnecessary. Just being honest, Uncle James." "Emma's been consulting for 3 months and hasn't produced a single actionable insight." Margaret caught my eye and gave a small shake of her head. A warning. I stayed quiet. Dad entered at 8 o'clock sharp, his suit perfectly pressed, his expression all business. He took his seat at the head of the table without acknowledging me. "Let's begin," he announced. "First order of business, the Hartford expansion. Tyler, you're up." Tyler stood clicking through his presentation. "As you know, We've identified a printing facility in Hartford that would give us Northeast coverage. The acquisition cost is $8.4 million, with projected integration costs of another $2.3 million. Robert Torres leaned forward, and the funding. We're proposing a combination of credit line expansion, and Tyler glanced at Dad, and liquidating some non-essential assets, such as Margaret asked sharply. Dad cleared his throat. The warehouse properties on Commercial Street were not using them to full capacity. Tyler's found a buyer willing to pay $4.2 million. Margaret's pen stopped moving. Those warehouses generate $380,000 in annual rental income, which will more than make up with the Hartford facility, Tyler said smoothly. Will we? I heard myself ask. Every head turned toward me. Tyler's smile was condescending. Sorry, did you have a question? The Hartford facility, what's its current profit margin? That's proprietary information. It's 3.2%, Margaret interrupted quietly. Compared to our current 11.4% across all operations, which will improve with Morrison operational efficiency, Tyler shot back. How? I asked. Their equipment is outdated, their client contracts are month to month, and their workforce is unionized with rates 22% higher than ours. What's your integration plan? Tyler's jaw tightened. I don't have to explain strategic decisions to a consultant, no. But you should probably explain them to the board, Uncle James said. Emma has a point. What's the integration timeline? We're working on the details. You don't have details, I said calmly. You have a purchase price and a dream. Dad's fist hit the table. Emma, if you're not here to contribute constructively, I am contributing. I'm asking the questions this board should have asked 3 weeks ago when Tyler first proposed this disaster. Disaster. Tyler's voice rose. This expansion will double our market reach. It'll drain our cash reserves, saddle us with an underperforming facility, and force us to sell income-generating assets to fund it. I opened my own laptop. Margaret, can you pull up the Q3 cash flow projections? Margaret hesitated, looking at Dad. Don't, Dad warned. Actually do, I said. Because the board has a right to see that Morrison and Sons is currently carrying $3.7 million in short-term debt, has missed 2 vendor payments in the last quarter, and is projecting a cash shortfall of $1.2 million by year-end even without the Hartford acquisition. Silence. Robert Torres's face went pale. Is this true? Dad's jaw worked. We have temporary cash flow challenges. You have a solvency problem, I corrected. And Tyler's expansion would accelerate it. Tyler slammed his laptop shut. Who the hell do you think you are? Someone who spent 3 months reviewing every financial document, every contract, every vendor agreement this company has. Someone who found irregularities in procurement, inflated expense reports and vendor kickbacks totaling $890,000 over 2 years. Margaret gasped. That's slander, Tyler shouted. It's documented. I pulled out a thick folder, complete with receipts, wire transfers, and email confirmations. Margaret, you'll recognize some of these. The procurement department flagged them, but the reports never made it to the board. Dad had gone very still. Where did you get those documents? From the company files. I had access through my consulting agreement. I looked at him directly. The agreement you signed 3 months ago without reading because you assumed I was just Emma playing at business again. You had no right. I had every right. The consulting agreement included full document access for strategic review. You signed it because Tyler told you I'd produce some useless market analysis and disappear. Uncle James picked up the folder, flipping through pages. His face darkened. Good God. Tyler, these expenses, a $47,000 vendor payment to a company that doesn't exist. That's out of context. It's fraud, Robert said flatly. Patricia, did you know about this? The operations director shook her head, looking sick. Tyler pointed at me. This is a setup. She's trying to sabotage the Hartford deal. I finished. I don't need to sabotage it. The numbers do that themselves. But yes, I'm trying to stop it because it would bankrupt this company within 18 months. Dad finally spoke. his voice low and dangerous. You come into my boardroom, accuse my son of fraud and think you can, what? Take over. No, I said quietly. I already took over. The room went dead silent. I pulled out another document. 3 months ago, Morrison and Sons needed capital. Fast. The bank turned you down for credit line expansion. You were desperate. Robert, you remember offering to buy another 10% but Dad refused. Robert nodded slowly. So Dad looked for alternative financing. He found an investment firm called Apex Holdings willing to provide $5 million in bridge financing at 8% interest. Margaret's eyes widened. The second quarter capital infusion was from Apex Holdings in exchange for 51% equity in Morrison and Sons. I slid the document across the table to Dad. I know because I own Apex Holdings. I've been the majority shareholder of this company for 93 days. Tyler lurched to his feet. That's impossible. It's public record. Well, it will be after 9 a.m. when the filing posts. I checked my watch. That's 12 minutes from now. Dad grabbed the document, his hands shaking. You bought my company. You sold it to a firm offering the capital you needed. You never asked who owned the firm because it was a corporate entity that I created specifically for this acquisition. Apex Holdings is wholly owned by Morrison Capital Group, which is wholly owned by me. Robert started laughing. A shocked, disbelieving sound. She bought the company from under you, using what money? Tyler demanded. You don't have $5 million. I have considerably more than that. Morrison Capital Group manages a portfolio of $47 million in commercial real estate and business investments. I've spent the last 8 years building it while you all assumed I was failing at entrepreneurship. Uncle James leaned back in his chair. The failed business ventures were learning experiences that taught me how to identify undervalued assets and turn them around. Morrison and Sons was undervalued because of mismanagement. The fundamentals are strong. Good client base, solid reputation, experienced workforce. It just needed better leadership. Tyler's face was purple. You sneaky conniving businesswoman. I supplied. Yes, I am. Dad looked at the document like it might bite him. Why? Because Morrison and Sons is a good company being destroyed by bad decisions because I grew up watching you build something amazing, and I couldn't watch Tyler burn it down. I paused. And because you never considered that your daughter might be capable of saving it. The consulting agreement, Margaret said softly. You needed access to verify the investment and to document the problems so I could fix them. Margaret, you're excellent at your job. The financial irregularities weren't your fault. Tyler routed everything around you. I looked at Patricia. Same with operations. You've been managing crises without knowing Tyler was creating them. Patricia's voice was shaky. The vendor issues last month. Tyler's kickback scheme. It stops today. Tyler grabbed his laptop. I'm calling our lawyer. Feel free. Though you should know that your employment contract includes a termination clause for fraud or mismanagement. You'll be receiving your separation notice today. You can't fire me. I can. I'm the CEO as of 8:30 this morning. The board will vote to confirm at 9:15, assuming the current board members wish to retain their positions. Robert was reading through my documents now. These financials, you've already identified $2.4 million in cost savings, conservative estimate, full audit will probably find more, and the Hartford facility, dead, will focus on optimizing current operations and expanding organically. The warehouse properties, keep them. That rental income is steady and reliable. Uncle James looked at Dad, who seemed to have aged 10 years and 10 minutes. Emma, what about your father? I met Dad's eyes across the table. You built this company over 35 years. You're brilliant at client relationships and strategic vision. You're terrible at financial management and personnel decisions. I'm proposing you stay on as president of client relations. Full executive salary benefits corner office. Your job is to do what you do best. Land big clients and maintain relationships. And you run everything else, Dad said flatly. Yes. As CEO. Yes. Of Morrison and Sons. Actually, I'm changing the name. Morrison and Partners better reflects the reality. Tyler made a strangled sound. Dad stared at me for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he laughed. You really did it. You actually bought my company. Our company now. When did you become this ruthless? I learned from watching you negotiate contracts. You taught me that business isn't about emotions. It's about outcomes. I never taught you anything. You wanted to study art history, remember? I did study art history. Then I got an MBA at night while working 3 jobs. You just never asked about any of it. Margaret spoke up quietly. For what it's worth, Emma's plan is sound. The cost savings alone would stabilize us. And her portfolio. I looked up Morrison Capital Group last week. She's got an impressive track record. You knew? Dad asked. I suspected. Emma's questions were too informed to be casual consulting. And she kept requesting documents that only an owner would need. I nodded to Margaret. You'll have full authority over finance again. No more end runs around your department. Thank God, she muttered. Robert Torres set down the documents. I'll vote to confirm Emma as CEO. This company needs her leadership. Patricia nodded. Seconded. Uncle James looked torn. Emma, your father will be treated with the respect he's earned. I said, this isn't a hostile takeover. It's a rescue. Dad, you can stay on my terms or you can take a very generous buyout and retire. Your choice. The silence stretched. Finally, Dad said, the parking spot. What? This morning, you wouldn't move your car from a 1 because it's the CEO's spot. And I'm the CEO. And Tyler tried to take it. He did. Dad looked at Tyler, who was still standing red-faced and furious. You really have been stealing from the company? Tyler's silence was answer enough. Dad closed his eyes. Get out. Dad. I said get out. You're fired. Emma will send the paperwork. Tyler looked around the table, finding no allies. He grabbed his laptop and stormed out, slamming the boardroom door behind him. Dad opened his eyes and looked at me. President of Client Relations. If you want it, corner office. You've earned it. And you'll actually listen to my input. On client strategy. Absolutely. On finance and operations. I'll take your thoughts under advisement. He almost smiled. That's corporate speak for no. That's corporate speak for I'm in charge now. Uncle James cleared his throat. So what happens to the board structure? Robert and Uncle James. Your positions are secure if you want them. Margaret stays as CFO. Patricia stays as operations director. I'm adding 2 outside board members with expertise in manufacturing efficiency and market expansion. And me? Dad asked. You're on the board. Non-voting position but full access and transparency. You thought of everything. I had 3 months. Margaret started laughing. The consulting agreement. You actually made him pay you to audit the company you already owned. $15,000 a month. I confirmed. Seemed fair. Even Dad cracked a smile at that. Ruthless. We spent the next 2 hours going through the transition plan. At 1130 I called a break. Dad caught my arm as I headed for the door. Emma, that parking spot? This morning? Yes. I should have asked why you were parking there. You should have. I assumed. You assumed I didn't belong. That Tyler deserved it more. I paused. You've been assuming that my whole life. I know. His voice was rough. And I was wrong. About everything, not everything. You built an incredible company. You just got lost in the idea that Tyler was your legacy. Morrison and Sons. He said quietly. The name mattered to me. Morrison and Partners matters more. Because it's true. He nodded slowly. Your mother's going to kill me when she finds out I sold the company without telling her. Probably. And that our daughter outsmarted me. Definitely. She'll be proud though. Of you. Will you be? Dad looked at me for a long moment. I am terrified but proud. At noon, I went down to the parking garage. Tyler's car was gone from a 2. My Lexus sat alone, in a 1. But there was something new. A brass placard mounted on the concrete wall. Reserved for Sue. I pulled out my phone and called the security chief. Davis. Did you install the placard in a 1? Yes, ma'am. Your father asked me to do it about an hour ago. Thank you, Ms. Morrison. For what it's worth, we're all glad you're here. The company needs you. I sat in my car for a moment looking at that placard. Hill Chief Executive Officer of Morrison and Partners. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. You haven't heard the last of this. I deleted it. Another text from Margaret. Asterisk, welcome to the top floor. Your office is being set up now. Asterisk. And one from Dad. Asterisk, family dinner Sunday. Your mother wants details. Prepare yourself. Asterisk. I started the car and pulled out of Space A1. The CEO's spot. My spot. As I drove up the ramp towards street level, I passed the building's main entrance. The old sign was already being taken down. Morrison and Sons, C. 1987. By Monday, it would say Morrison and Partners. My company. My rules. My legacy. I smiled and drove toward my next meeting. The morning sun glinting off the Lexus's hood. Turns out I belonged in that parking spot after all.